Hello again, ladies and gents, and welcome back to the AJ Roberts Show. Today, we are extremely lucky to have Aaron Abke, all the way from the United States. He's a founder for the university, and I'm really keen to get him on the show. He's done many appearances on Guy TV and loads of other programs, has some fantastic educational content and facilities that he has on offer. So I was really keen to get Aaron on the show today to discuss like the shift that we're all going through, whether you whatever age you're at, doesn't matter where you are in the world, we're all going through something at the minute. So it's really important to start having these conversations. And Aaron is a perfect person to bring in to kind of elaborate on the message that I've been kind of bringing to the forefront the last few weeks. So welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you for having me, man. It's a pleasure to be with you.
So obviously, you're a young guy and you've got this like amazing business with your 4D university and stuff like that. But where did that all like start with you? Like, so, if you wouldn't mind sharing a bit about your background and how you come to be and do what you're doing now.
Sure, yeah. So I was born and raised in the church as a pastor's kid. We call it in the States, we call it the evangelical denomination. I'm not sure how much evangelicalism is in the UK, but big denomination in the West for Christianity. And grew up in just a great church environment. My dad's church, our family church, was about as unlegalistic or unfundamentalist as you can get in the Christian religion, which I was very blessed by. But nevertheless, I still had questions about the dogmatic aspects of my faith that I think all Christians wrestle with, whether they acknowledge that to themselves or not. And so I started questioning some of those things around 18. And I was going to follow in my dad's footsteps as a pastor until I was about 23. When I got my first pastoring job, that kind of got derailed because I had this big sort of spiritual awakening out of my religion where I just said, look, I don't know who this God is that you are preaching anymore. I don't know a God of wrath and vengeance and punishment and jealousy. I only know a God that looks like Jesus, which is unconditionally loving and forgives 70 times 7 and whose mercy abounds far greater than anything else. And so I have to be true to the God that I know and disavow this religion that doesn't preach this God. So the church I had worked at when I got my first full-time pastoring job after I graduated from college was very fundamentalist, much more so than my parents' church. So that was a blessing in disguise because it forced me to confront those dogmatic beliefs I was kind of running from for a long time. I didn't want to admit to myself I didn't really believe much of the Christian religion anymore. And so then that took me on a long kind of journey of the soul for about 5 years or so. I kind of dove headlong into the Eastern traditions of Buddhism and especially Hinduism, and just started understanding spirituality from a whole new paradigm. And that led to an experience at 27 or 28 when I was working as a personal trainer at Google in Silicon Valley, kind of like Google's headquarters in the Bay Area. And I had this huge spiritual awakening happen that left me in a kind of Buddha-like state for 2 weeks. And I got to really glimpse that heavenly state of consciousness that is available to us if we're willing to, strive for it, that is. And then at the 2-week mark, to make a long story short, the state started to unravel and my ego started to come back online and the suffering started to come back. And as you can imagine, leaving a religion that you were born into your whole life is a very disorienting experience, to say the least. But I'd also gotten divorced at 26 when I left my religion. I was married at 23, and then I left Christianity, and my wife and I kind of did this in our relationship because she wasn't making the turn with me quite as fast. So I blew up my life. All my friends think I'm a heretic now. Almost all my family, except my 2 parents and my sister, have disavowed me as well as a backslider or something. And so I'm like living all alone in the Bay Area with no friends, basically nobody in my life except for my personal training clients. And I'm struggling through this disorientation of what do I believe about God? Who am I? If the Christian religion isn't true, then what is true? And the depression that comes with a divorce and all that stuff. So I had a lot of stuff compounding on my consciousness at that time. And that's what really catalyzed this dramatic awakening. But when that 2-week period ended and the ego came back online, it made the suffering much worse, because it's kind of like, if you get to taste what heaven is like, if you're just in hell and you've never tasted heaven, hell is awful, but it's not as awful as it could be if you get to taste what heaven's like, and then you're plunged back into hell again. It just makes it way more insufferable, right? And so because I had this glimpse, I knew what was available, and yet here I am back in the throes of depression and ego, and I don't know how to get out of it. And so that was what radically changed my life after that 2-week experience, that 2-week sort of free sample of enlightenment, was that I got to see, number one, this state of consciousness is absolutely real. And number two, absolutely available to the human. And number three, nothing else mattered in my life. So I was a full-time fitness model. I was a full-time competitive bodybuilder and working as a personal trainer. I was really engrossed in the fitness kind of vanity scene. And I just walked out of my life after that experience, because none of it meant anything anymore. I realized it was just a chasing after the wind. It wasn't going to fulfill me. And so I devoted my whole life to spiritual seeking and trying to figure out, how do I back engineer myself back into that heavenly state of consciousness that I got to experience for 2 weeks? Surely there must be a way. And so it was the enlightenment teachings of Buddhism and Hinduism and Christian mysticism that really illuminated that path for me. And then eventually texts like A Course in Miracles and The Law of One, the divine sort of put on my lap at a certain point. And those two texts together kind of appeared around the same time in my life. And I just became obsessed with both of them, because it was clearly like, okay, here's my blueprint back into that state. If I can do what these texts are teaching me to do, I can live in that state of consciousness. And from that journey, I just started, making videos one day, just out of my own kind of need to have a creative outlet for everything I was learning and exploring in myself. I had no intention at all of being a YouTuber, a teacher, anything like that. I didn't even think I had a gift of articulation or teaching. But to my surprise, some of the videos did really well. And as I started to see that, hey, people are enjoying my content and benefiting from it, it was maybe like a year into my YouTube journey that it even occurred to me that it might be something I could do full time.
And it's amazing when you see journeys that unravel, and especially when I see guys doing it as well. It's having come from a strong military background where spirituality is almost pretty much removed from everything. And I often joke when I do my talk stuff out and say, can you imagine a soldier on a Friday night in the bar just saying, look guys, I'm gonna leave early because I'm planning on doing a big meditation in the morning. It just wouldn't happen. So
probably very rare.
Yeah. And it's great to see. I really seen it a lot more of it now, and guys being very open about it and stuff like that, because it's always been given a dogma or a stigma, hasn't it? Spirituality. And if I say to guys now, if you close your eyes and I said the word God, what do you picture? And they always picture some big guy with a grey beard overarching the planet, like puppeteering,
like Monty Python.
Yeah, pretty much. So to see somebody go full circle, like detached from religion, which is what you have done, we know when all religions all come back to the same thing, to source, don't they? At the end of the day. So to be able to identify that, and I've been very much the same. I had the same concept because of the military, but then when I detached myself and deprogrammed from all that and really went within and started studying it, and like yourself, I've listened to the full spectrum of conversations with God, and I've listened to Course in Miracles and stuff like that, which is so many great lessons from. It just all makes sense, and they were written many years ago before they were started to
back in the 70s.
Yeah, before my time. And it's to see that still exactly relevant now, and it just all makes sense. It's fantastic, and I do thoroughly recommend it to anybody. But you mentioned about your relationships that you still have now with your parents and sisters and stuff like that. Do you see sort of an increase in elevation in consciousness in the people who haven't spoken to you for a long time? And this is a conversation I asked this because this is a conversation I've had recently where people keep saying oh, these people are all asleep and I'm really awake and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, there's neither or. From the minute you're born till now, you're on an awakening. You're always finding out who you are. So are you noticing sort of elevation in consciousness around those circles, who maybe have shut the door on you in the past? Are you seeing differences in them? And I ask because in my circles, I'm very much seeing those growth patterns in a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely.
Mm.
Yeah, it's clear that we're going through some kind of upgrade on the planet. There's just a mass awakening happening thanks to a lot of the corruption in the world, right?
Mm.
It's even cool to see how Christianity went from being like socially unacceptable, like keep it to yourself, we don't want to hear about your dumb religion. And now with the way the political climate especially is, it's like cool or like based, as they say, to like be a classical Christian or Muslim or any kind of religion is becoming more and more socially acceptable and even respectable, because it means like we see this one big segment of our society just absolutely unraveling into degeneracy and promoting ideas that we all consider to just be reprehensible, right? And so now that's polarizing so much that people are like, hey, you're religious? Great, you've got some morals. I'm in for that, So there's awakenings in every aspect of the collective consciousness, but certainly as well for people in religion, progressing more towards mystical religion, I think is really happening, because I got to see that firsthand with my own parents. One of the first YouTube vlogs that I made was called Why I Left Christianity for Jesus, because I was frustrated with this message I kept hearing from my former Christian friends, college roommates, church friends. Everybody who was seeing the things I was posting and hearing about me would reach out to me and be like, brother, come back to Christ, And I'm like, no, you come back to Christ. You're the one who left Christ for this dogmatized, bastardized Western version of Jesus who never existed. Like the Jesus who actually existed was such a radical kind of political revolutionary. He was calling out the corruption of his day. He was calling out the religious corruption and hypocrisy that y'all are swept up in now. And you guys drink it up. Like if Jesus was alive today, he'd be pointing that same finger at you guys, and he'd be helping the marginalized, the ones you call heretics and backsliders. The Jesus I know preached oneness, preached unconditional love, and that looks nothing like the Jesus you serve. So I actually left your religion because of Jesus, not because I reject Jesus. No, I reject your false version of him. But the real Jesus is what I want. And that was just not an idea that they could grasp or seem to grasp. So my parents, more especially my dad, had a lot of trouble with me saying things like, I don't believe in a literal physical hell anymore. I think hell is a state of consciousness that we create through suffering. I think heaven is not a geographical location in the cosmos we go to after we die. I don't believe in that anymore. I believe it's a state of consciousness we embody through Christ vision. And he didn't like that, right? That's new age and stuff. And so we had a bit of a, rough patch in our relationship for a while. But the blessing is that my dad has also been very marginalized by the church. And, as a pastor, you go through so much political strife. It's not even funny, because Christian churches tend to be some of the most dysfunctional places on earth, because everybody has this giant ego they haven't acknowledged, because they believe, hey, you just have to confess Jesus as Lord and you're done. You don't have to work on yourself. You don't have to evolve spiritually. Just pray this prayer and you're good. Just go to church and that's all you need to do. And so there's no concept of evolution or personal growth, right? So Christians have these massive egos they're not aware of that drive them to usurp one another. And churches are very similar to the kind of pyramid top-down structures we see in these megalithic corporations, right? Where it's fight to get to the top and step over anyone to get to your goal. That's what a lot of churches are unfortunately like. And so my dad had been ripped to shreds by church people and Christians in very like hypocritical ways. And so he kind of started to grow more disenfranchised from religion, and then started reading my posts and watching my videos more and more, probably in secret, and being like, actually, I'm starting to see what my son's talking about here. And now we're at a place, let's say 5 years, 6 years later, where we've had conversations about basically everything I teach. And he's essentially on board with all of it. Like he doesn't believe in a literal hell anymore. He doesn't believe in like the rapture, biblical inerrancy. He's very much progressed to mystical ideas of Christianity, such as oneness. And so it's been cool to see. I never would have imagined my preacher dad was going to come full circle and be like a new age Christian like I am.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think just the fact that the planet's going through this upgrade, it's making it easier energetically for everyone to question their beliefs and upgrade their beliefs along with the planet's upgrading.
Yeah, and I think it's where people are questioning their beliefs. It's not necessarily around just like one thing. Like I've noticed it in loads of our friendship circles. Even the other night, one of our friends said to us as we were leaving the restaurant, "Do you feel like we're living in a movie?" And I was just like, for me, when people say that, I'm like, that's actually like a quite a defining moment in someone's like awakening
Oh
process.
yeah.
But that sentence alone, and I'm just because that means that they're so much more aware of everything and how
Yep.
things aren't necessarily perceived the same as what they thought 12 months ago. So that's a
Yep.
huge sign in their elevated consciousness, isn't it? And like when I start chucking in things like yeah, do you see like repetitive numbers all the time and stuff like that? And it literally lights up their eyes, you know, and that's one key thing I'm seeing as well. And it's really quite fascinating. I'm actually really enjoying it at the minute, seeing the people close to me having
Oh yes.
these little shifts. And I know it does frustrate people because you do get a lot of people just like, I'm not seeing it anywhere. But I said to some people yesterday, I said, if you actually look, like, take away the last 2-3 years, right, that the pandemic and people's versions of events and opinions on all that, if you take all that out and actually look at like their growth period in the last 12 months of what they're doing now, so many more people are venturing outside, so many people are doing wild swimming or just being out in nature, a hell of a lot more people are growing their own food. Like if you actually stack up all those things, you actually see that everyone's going through their own shift in their own little way. They just not
It's huge.
necessarily agree on things that happened over the last couple of years, which is fine because people, that's the whole point of this, is the whole point of these lessons, right? And
Yep.
people are starting to see it as that. They're seeing it as the lessons, which, you know, when you take a stand back and be the observer, which is, you know, such a strong thing to be able to do, you can just see everything in front of you. And, you know, it's actually quite beautiful to see, really.
It is, yeah, and it's almost adorable sometimes when you have people in your life who are really going through their awakening as well. And like you said, you're looking at everything from a higher perspective now because you've gone through that journey yourself. And you know, I'll have like, this doesn't happen that often, but whether it's family members at gatherings or whatever, you do see that awakening effect happening everywhere because you'll have a conversation with like your grandma or your aunt or something, and they'll be like, you know, I'm starting to think that the mainstream media might be in cahoots with the government. And I
Yeah.
think they might be telling us what the government wants us to hear. You ever think about that? And I'm like, yeah, you might be onto something there. So it's cool, right? It's like everyone's at their own level of awakening. And that's why there's 8 billion universes happening simultaneously on this planet, right? We're all at our own stage of conscious evolution and awareness and realization. And so it's cool to talk with people like yourself to get the similar reflections of like, what do you see happening in the world? What is your perspective on the awakening of humanity right now? It's a challenging time to be alive, but it's also an incredible time to be alive. To be alive on this planet during what I consider is probably the most dramatic upgrade, awakening, evolution, whatever you want to call it, in the planet's history. You know, the way technology is doubling every 2 years and the way that it's forcing mankind to face our immorality, that if we don't become spiritually integrated very soon, we're going to destroy ourselves with this new technology. So you see the catalysts that the universe is providing humanity to force us to awaken, because the consequences of staying asleep are becoming far too severe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people are feeling that. And it's just nice to see people taking a lot more care of themselves, their minds, their body, their soul.
Yeah.
And actually like identifying that as well, and that there's issues and things that need rectifying, which is absolutely blessing. And I think for what I do, kind of similar to yourself, like I run courses, I do talks around the country and stuff like that, and it's all about consciousness, the power of the mind, power of the body, what we can achieve as humans, you know, the power of or who we are, and trying to bring people back to that. And I guess very similar to your 4D university, which is proved very popular. Like, did that come about as a result of things that you were seeing, or was it just you were like, this is my passion, this is what I need to do, this is my journey, and this is what it's going to look like?
Yeah. It was very much a similar path of just life, source, guiding me along a path that I had no clue I was walking for quite a while. When I moved, so I moved from the Bay Area to Colorado in 2019, right before the pandemic, right around the time my YouTube channel was about, I think, 30,000 subscribers. And I was feeling like, okay, I could make this my full-time life's purpose if I really invest in it. And I knew that being a personal trainer was not what I wanted to do with my life. Although I enjoyed it as an act of service to others, it was like, I want to be of greater impact to the world than this. And the YouTube channel that was evolving felt like life's gift to me to have that outlet of service. So I said, I'm going to be a good steward of this. I'm going to move out of the Bay Area where I can barely pay my rent every month and move to a place where I can invest more time into this YouTube channel. So I moved to Denver, and within a month of me being there, I got a job initially as a trainer at 24 Hour Fitness. I had probably less than a dozen sessions before I quit, because right around that time I was getting messages from people on my YouTube channel asking me, and Instagram, asking me like, hey, do you do one-on-one coaching? And I was like, no, I don't do one-on-one sessions. Sorry, but here's my YouTube channel, enjoy the content. And after so many times of saying no to that, eventually I had one day where 4 people reached out in a single day asking me if I do one-on-one sessions. And I was just at that time starting to tune in to the way the universe speaks to us with those kind of synchronicities. And I was like, I wonder if the universe is trying to tell me something here. And so I said, all right, I'm going to give this a gamble, and maybe this is what the universe is asking me to do. So I put out a post saying, hey, I'm now accepting one-on-one coaching sessions. And I think I charged like $60 an hour or something. And I had like 40 to 50 emails that day saying, I want to join, I want to book a session. So I thought, wow, I mean, this is more than I make personal training per hour. So I can definitely quit my job. And so I did, and I just did full-time, 4 or 5 coaching sessions a day. And all of a sudden I was more financially stable than ever in my life. And I was able to be full-time working for myself. And that's where the journey really began, of investing heavily into my YouTube channel. And I started all kinds of different series on my channel: Mind Science, The Law of One, A Course in Miracles. And the channel was growing really, really fast. And I was doing a lot of coaching. And probably the principal teaching that came through for me in those years where I was trying to figure out, how do I back engineer myself into that state of consciousness again, was something that I call the 3 beliefs of ego. And it was an understanding that came through for me. It was just basically what the universe channeled to me to help me understand why I was suffering so much. And it came through as a series of questions I was asking myself, like, okay, what are the basic emotions I suffer from? If I can identify the feelings I suffer from, that may give me some clues about what's causing my suffering. And so after inquiring for a while, it was clear to me that there's really just 3 negative emotions that we suffer from: sadness, anger, and fear. And every other emotion we might name is just a different variation of one of those 3 emotions. There's many different kinds of sadness, many kinds of anger, and many kinds of fear, but those are the 3 root emotions. And I saw that they're root chakra, sacral chakra, solar plexus chakra. And from there, I thought, okay, if I suffer from different feelings, it stands to reason that there's got to be some kind of reason that I suffer from sadness versus anger. Why am I angry rather than anxious? There's got to be a reason. And that reason became the 3 beliefs of ego, meaning there's actually an underlying, unspoken, subconscious belief behind those feelings that when you feel one of them, the emotional guidance system in your body is actually pointing you to the wrong belief you're holding about yourself. And that understanding was the breakthrough for me in terms of really being able to diminish the amount of suffering I was feeling every day significantly in a short period of time. And so when I started coaching people, that was my first go-to, was teaching them the 3 beliefs of ego and how to conquer these beliefs within their mind gradually, day by day, through this practice. And it was getting my clients such great results that they started to say, hey man, you should really put together a course or something about this, because this could help a lot of people. And you can be of service to more people than just one person at a time. And once I had a few more clients tell me that, I said, okay, maybe the universe is speaking to me here. And then ironically, one of my clients who had booked 4 sessions with me, at the end of our 4th session, he said, hey, before I go, I just want to let you know that I actually help creators like yourself make courses. I would love to help you make a course if you're open to that. And I said, well, funny you should ask. I've actually been considering doing that, but I had no idea where to start. So I started working with him, and together we built my first masterclass, which was called Master Your Mind. And that I ran for a couple of years, which just basically takes people through the same journey of the soul that I went through to transcend my own suffering. And then from there, as my own spiritual growth evolved, I went through a Kundalini awakening in 2019 to 2020. And understanding how to facilitate that process created a new need for me to make another course. And so basically, I just thought, why don't I just consolidate all these programs into one place? And I called it 4D University because really the biggest framework of what I teach is a concept from the Law of One, which is that our planet is graduating. As of 2012, it officially graduated from what they call the 3rd density of consciousness, which is basically the 3rd chakra of consciousness, ego consciousness, separation consciousness. Earth is actually graduating from that and transitioning into the 4th density of consciousness, which is the heart, 4th chakra, heart chakra. And that is the awareness of our unity and our oneness with each other. So we call that love. So we're transitioning from separation to love right now. And humanity, as we clearly can see, is struggling to learn these lessons that we are all one and we're not separate from each other. And the more we treat each other like we're separate, the more we're going to suffer. And so we, each one of us, also have to make that transition, just like the planet does, from 3rd to 4th density of consciousness. And so 4D University is basically a university that teaches people, an online academy that teaches people through a 7-month curriculum, the spiritual concepts and the practices to implement those concepts to really begin living a 4th density state of consciousness here and now, to live as a being of love, service to others, and unity consciousness. It takes a lot of spiritual effort to upgrade your frequency like that, but anyone can do it if they have the desire to do it. The problem is more so the how, and everybody offers their own unique path, right? The path that I offer is not the only right path or something. It's just what has worked for me and the knowledge I've been blessed with. And so 4D University is just kind of like my attempt to offer my path to the world. Say, hey, this worked for me. Come try it out. It may work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very similar to the courses I've run myself. They're based on like rapid learning, but to give people a platform basically to then use the tools to, like, you know, build their own tool bag, in essence, their own toolkit, to then use that to facilitate their own constant evolving growth. You know, which is massively important, and why so many more people are getting a lot more interested in it, whether it be a tiny snippet of information. I think for me, a lot of the things that people are interested in now is like the word consciousness is like obviously used, and you hear it so much more. It's become very much part of the subconscious, like, because you're hearing it a lot more. But people are starting to ask the question, what does that actually mean? What does it mean to be a conscious human being? What is a human being? What are these feelings that I'm having? What are these funny symptoms that I'm having that, you know, that people are reporting a lot of now, like ringing of the ears and like an expansive feeling in the head and the heart and all of this
Kundalini
stuff.
symptoms.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm getting lots of people like speaking to me about it. And I've been opening a lot of space as well for people by saying, like, if you're experiencing this, just share, you know, because there's so many more people doing so. And that's working really well as well. And again, when you share those or symptoms, or whatever you want to call them, with people, and know that you're not the only person experiencing it, that the feeling towards that just elevates so much more, because you know that you're not on your own. You know that you're not like isolated thinking, oh, am I going crazy? Am I nuts? When there's millions and millions of people experiencing the same thing, and it's just growing and growing and growing as the planet's consciousness elevates. And it's interesting, actually, you talk about like the go from the solar plexus chakra into the heart chakra in 2012, where obviously Glastonbury / UK England is that chakra of the planet, and the Olympic Games was always going to be held here in London on 2012, as a dark versus light. Because if you haven't seen it already, guys, go and watch the opening ceremony from the 2012 Olympics, and it was just shows you basically what's happened in 2020.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so that's just proof of the pudding. But I mean, with the university and like the students that come onto it, and the work that you do with these people, what sort of like results do you see people come out with over the period of 7 months? Because, like you're saying, every journey is different, and the length of time that people connect with certain things is always different. But what sort of like results come the end of it, or over that period, do you really see from students partaking?
Yeah, well, so the curriculum that I lay out is like, I'm not promising you that you're going to reach total freedom in 7 months, but I am going to equip you with all the tools and resources you could ever need to achieve that freedom when your own karma determines it. And so with that being said, it has amazed me and blown my mind the results people are getting in the amount of time that they're getting them. Every soul is at its own level of ripeness, of course. So it's not like I take any credit for it, but it's like there are a lot of souls that are ready for evolution and ascension, but they just didn't have the understanding, the tools available to really do that. But as soon as you give it to them, it's like, putting lighter fluid on charcoal or something. They just ignite. And what the basic, so this is kind of a complex conversation, but I'll try to simplify it. The heart chakra is the fourth chakra, which represents fourth density consciousness. And that the 7 densities of consciousness correlate to the 7 chakras. And the densities are kind of like the chakras of the universe. And so we are a microcosm of the universe in that we have those 7 densities in the form of our chakras. And so when we transition to a higher chakra, every life form on earth is at a certain density of consciousness. So the first density is the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and space. And consciousness spends billions of years in the first density before it eventually starts evolving into a planet with oceans that can evolve into second density, which is any organism that can interact with its environment. So that would begin as some kind of microbial life in the ocean, which, cells continue to divide, little tadpoles form, fish form, and then those fish crawl into the land, become land mammals. And so the spectrum of like microbial life, insects, plants, and animals is the full second density spectrum. Any organism that can interact with the environment. And so animals, insects, plants only have the first 2 energy centers in activation. I actually think a plant would be first density still, technically. But when we evolved into Homo sapiens, where we became self-aware beings, we evolved into the third chakra, the solar plexus, or the yellow ray energy center. And that gave us this new ability to be self-aware. And that means now we can contemplate past, future. We can then make technologies and structures and hierarchies. And the whole landscape of human life we see is the product of that third chakra coming online hundreds of thousands of years ago. So what do you think is going to happen when another chakra comes online, right? The heart chakra. It's going to be another progression or step up, just like the third chakra was from the second one. So every chakra that becomes fully activated represents a massive, significant level up in the level of consciousness of that being. So when you upgrade to the heart chakra, when the heart chakra is active and online at least 51% or more of the time, that begins what we call a Kundalini awakening. And this is basically what Kundalini awakening is actually something so much more significant and important than I think mankind has ever properly understood. The Hindus especially really get into the science of Kundalini awakening, and through their own cultural language really defined the science extremely well. But it is actually a biological event, right? It's a neurobiological upgrade of the whole system that happens in response to a certain demand being placed on the heart center. And that demand is attempting to become a being of love. Meaning when I practice service to others, this is why karma yoga is probably the most popular yoga in all of India, because it's like, look, just go out and do good deeds, serve people, bless people, and your heart chakra is going to come online. It's going to activate. So there's many paths to awaken the heart. Devotion is probably the most powerful one, bhakti yoga. But when the heart is online, at least 51% or more of the time, it sends a kind of signal to the nervous system. You need to upgrade to make room to conduct this higher level of energy that the heart produces, because every chakra produces a higher frequency of energy. And so the nervous system has to be able to conduct that energy. And so this is why, blissful experiences, oneness experiences, like the 2-week experience I had, those peak experiences are typically very short-lived because we're still operating from a third density nervous system that it can reach those heights of bliss for a little while, but then you're kind of redlining the RPMs on your nervous system, and it's going to burn out and bring you back to baseline because you don't have the energetic capacity yet to conduct that frequency on an ongoing basis. So you've got to upgrade the nervous system to live in those states of love and bliss permanently. And so it's like when you attempt to live in bliss and love and gratitude and heart opening energies, you are telling your nervous system, I want this state of consciousness. So give me the resources to do that, right? Just like lifting a heavy weight in the gym, you're putting a certain stress on the muscle that's saying, I need you to get stronger so you can sustain this weight. And so the muscle begins to respond and grow larger and stronger. That's kind of the same idea of the nervous system, is we've got to place a spiritual demand on our nervous system to upgrade our frequency level. And for most of us in this day and age, AJ, that's going to require a lot of physical detoxing first. We got to get the junk and the toxicity out of our body, because the nervous system will say, hey, I'm happy to upgrade if you stop dumping poison into me. Then I may actually be able to do this for you. So Kundalini awakening typically puts people through it can be sometimes a very vicious detox where that energy comes online in the nervous system and begins making its way up the spine. And the spine is like the highway of the nervous system. So as that energy raises, it's going to be burning through all the impurities and the blockages in your nervous system. And so classically, when people have Kundalini awakenings, if they don't approach it the right way, if the right foundation isn't set first, they have a kind of almost like psychological disorder start to happen, where they're dark night of the soul, all these different kind of die-offs start happening in their mind, and they don't even know what's going on half the time. So I think I'm seeing this happen more and more on our planet, that people are going through this process of upgrading and they barely even know what's happening to them. And a lot of these people end up in a psych ward because they go to their doctor saying, I'm having really dark thoughts, or I'm having it's almost like I'm becoming bipolar. And what is a Western medicine doctor going to say other than, oh, cool, take these drugs. Right. And then if you suppress what's going on during a Kundalini awakening, you're going to massively exacerbate the problems. And then you're going to end up in a psych ward. Right. So it's like humanity needs a resource to better understand what's going on and facilitate this process. And that was a big part of my heart's passion to create 4D University, was like, okay, a Kundalini awakening is a fourth density ascension process happening in your nervous system. But if you don't know how to facilitate it, you could be in for a world of trouble for a while. So let me create a resource that teaches people how to facilitate this process. And for those who aren't going through this upgrade yet, who want to start this upgrade, this is how you can do it, right? And so it's been amazing to me to watch the transformations people have in doing a lot of these. I give a lot of advanced yoga practices, breath work, and things like that stimulate Kundalini and open the nervous system for Kundalini. And it's like, man, we really are going through an upgrade on our planet, because it's like people's nervous systems are just like primed and heated up for this transition to start happening. The second people start really putting an emphasis on this process, it starts to happen. And we have a lot of students that will make it into week 5 of the course. And it's the course that actually teaches people how to facilitate a Kundalini awakening is the third course in Ford University, and it's a 12-week course. And people are like not even making it to week 5 before they're having interconjunctions. And the interconjunction is the event we normally think of as a Kundalini awakening, where the kind of lightning bolt shoots up the spine and people have that moment of like cosmic consciousness. That's just one kind of event that happens in a Kundalini awakening, but it happens when there's a huge charge built up in the energy body from spiritual seeking that it eventually has to discharge, sort of like a lightning bolt in a thundercloud. It seeks to discharge the energy, and it discharges through the crown chakra. And so people will have like we had a few months ago, one of our students is a dental assistant, I think it is. And she was doing a dental checkup on a patient, and they have those little mouth flashlights that they'll use. And as she's about to check out this woman's mouth, she starts to feel this energy, this heat building at the base of her spine. And she'd been really doing the breath work practices every morning before work. And she realizes very quickly, like, oh no, something is happening in my body. And she starts to get kind of paralyzed by it. And she said the client was sort of like, what is going on? And as she's holding the flashlight, the interconjunction happens and she gets this lightning bolt up her spine. The client thinks she's having a seizure. So the client runs out to get a doctor, and she has this Kundalini awakening activation happen. And the flashlight she's holding actually blew out because of the energy moving through her body. So the doctor doesn't know what's going on. She knows what's going on, but she doesn't want to obviously explain it to her doctor. So she's like, I think I need to sit down. And her doctor takes the flashlight from her to perform, the rest of the operation, the procedure on the client. And he's like, the flashlight's not working. And they put new batteries in it and it still doesn't work. And the doctor obviously didn't know what was going on, but she was like, whoa, that was some powerful energy surging through my body just now. And so this is not uncommon at all in 40U to have these kinds of really explosive Kundalini activations. But for other people, it's just that purification process of, okay, strap in my seatbelt. I'm ready to meet my shadows and purify and heal. And so people go through a lot of die-offs and meeting their childhood traumas and things like that. But it's just amazing to watch. Kundalini really does do all the work for us if we're just willing to surrender to the process.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree. And it kind of happened to me in like early to mid 2021, like as in from a Kundalini perspective. And it was a surreal experience. But then like you feel like you've just been shoved in a box, like rattled around everything, then they open the lid and it's like a little bit of a different world and you can just see more. It's just like and I was kind of similar, like you just have to you're kind of trying to work it out, like especially as a guy as well, where where you come from, there is a lot of ego there, especially like for myself being ex-military, and it's all kind of like breaking all that down, all the programs, and then seeing it for what it is. And then suddenly you're like, why do I want to just like sit in the woods like naked and just meditate all day? Do you know what I mean? It's like, why do I feel like that?
Yeah.
And that's that feeling. And that's what obviously we explain to a lot of people now. And it's totally different for everybody. But it's what coming out the other side of it, I guess, is which is why you've probably got loads of people that say to yourself, and I do as well, like, man, you're so chilled out and relaxed all the time, and you just look healthy and you look happy and you look this and you look that. But that's just a byproduct of it, because you're then living your life in a 3D realm, in a fourth density, fifth density, stuff like that, which is more than achievable for anybody, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
But when you're saying about the Earth's chakras coming online and moving from like solar plexus to heart, like one of the examples I've been talking about a lot recently is like you only have to look at like the modern Western males have literally been almost manipulated into staying in the base 3 chakras, haven't they? Living their life from those base 3. So it's all about literally flight or fight, food, sex, drink, like literally the base 3 chakras. And you only have to go to any town center to see that for yourself, to see that's how guys are kind of living their lives. And we're even, if you're talking about programming, we're even marketed based on the colors of those chakras. So you've got like orange, the solar plexus chakra, which is Pornhub. you've got like Hooters, all that stuff. It's all
Yeah,
cleverly
true.
it's all cleverly interlinked to, and you don't even, if you don't know anything about the chakras as a male, your gaze is turned on those colors and words and everything else like that. But it's
Yeah.
actually like aligned with your energy centers, McDonald's, yellow and red, like stuff like that keeps us,
Fascinating.
yeah, keeps us, all really low down. So it's very interesting how the alignment of where we're moving now in terms of through the global chakras is kind of like breaking down a lot of that, and guys especially are coming more and more online to that divine masculine, to that alpha male barbarianism, where the fucking most of you been like for the last few years.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
seeing a massive like increase in that, away from ego, more into soul. And I find I'm having a lot more meaningful conversations with guys. I don't know about yourself, but like they actually want to have proper conversations about what they like doing, what they want to do with their lives, talking about health changes, talking about growing their own food. These are just
Oh,
little
yeah.
signs that you can see that they're having this shift. Um, and do you see that's something for yourself? You're seeing an increase in men, actually starting to almost surrender to the fact they are spiritual beings and actually what that is about.
Certainly. Yeah. It's been on our planet for quite some time, probably most of human history, really, that the masculine has dominated over the feminine. And, we call it the patriarchy, right? But it has been true that almost every major nation in the world has been driven and run by men, and women have been sort of put under the foot for a long time and subjugated for a long time. And it's only been in recent history, at least in the States, that women earned the right to vote and things like that. And it wasn't seen as crazy for women to have jobs that men tended to like to have. So I think as a natural progression of the evolution of consciousness, because the masculine for so long on this planet really did suppress the feminine, now we're seeing the pendulum swing of that in the culture, where the feminine is now rising to power, and it's been so victimized for so long that we see this kind of victimized feminine rising up, which is the radical left on the political spectrum. And it's very much, treating masculinity as the problem, and you're evil, and being masculine itself is inherently evil. And that's been a narrative for a long time in the mainstream. And that's because it's a natural part of healing, right? It's no different than when a woman breaks up with a narcissistic abuser. She first has to convince herself that it's wrong to stay in the relationship. And then she finally gains the empowerment to stand up to him and leave him. And then what happens? She goes through a period of intense anger and resentment towards him. And then hopefully, if she keeps progressing spiritually, which not everybody does, she will eventually find forgiveness to him and say, I'm not going to be your victim anymore. I forgive you. I'm moving on with my life. And that's what collectively we're just about to start doing, which is to say, no, 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 just because the masculine on this planet has been very domineering and patriarchal for a long time doesn't mean masculinity is inherently wrong. Both polarities are equally divine. They just need to be exalted to their divine expression, which we call the divine masculine and the divine feminine. And so through influencers like Andrew Tate and people like Jordan Peterson have started to bring that conversation in of, no, it's good to be a man. It's good to be masculine in the divine way, right? Of supporting women and being a champion for the feminine rather than suppressing the feminine or controlling the feminine. And we're going to keep seeing that, I think, more and more. But there has been this really explosive awakening on our planet in really a very short period of time. If you think about it, it's only been, what would you say, maybe 10 years or so that we've heard this narrative in the mainstream of masculinity is toxic and whatnot.
Yeah.
And already we're seeing this revolt against that message of, no, it's good to be a man. I don't apologize for being a masculine man. There's nothing inherently toxic within masculinity. You just need to evolve to exalt your masculinity to its highest expression. Be self-responsible, be integrous, be supportive, teach the younger generation how to be responsible. That's what a true masculine man does. And what has been one of the major problems in the West, it's been having this fatherless generation for so long, where boys grew up without fathers who instilled in them strong, healthy masculine virtues. So eventually we will have to balance both our masculine and feminine energies. The feminine has to stop being so victimized and disempowered and step into their power. The masculine has to see their own self-worth and step into their power as a man or a masculine as well. And whether you're a biological female or a biological male, you have both polarities within you. And each one of us has a unique balance between those polarities, right? Some biological men are more feminine in their expression, more creative and whatnot, and that's beautiful and equally valid. Likewise, there's some women who are much more masculine outwardly. They're much more rational, logical thinkers, intellectuals, and that's also beautiful. But whatever your balance is between the two polarities, you have to find that balance and exalt that balance. And so by denying one of the polarities in yourself, you're massively halting your spiritual growth. And I think that's the biggest problem in the radical left narrative, is to demonize the expression of the masculine and basically say, hey, it's only valid to express your feminine, to be gay, to be bisexual, to whatever. It's totally great to do that. It's absolutely wrong to own your masculine, because masculinity is inherently toxic. A lot of people have bought into that message especially in the Gen Z generation. But the bottom line is, it's going to keep producing the kinds of suffering and insanity that we see in that collective of the population until it is abandoned as, this is not the way. This is not the highest way to be happy and to be who you are. And eventually everything will have to lead us back to that balance, because balance is the law of the universe, right? We cannot escape balance, as it is a metaphysical archetype in everything. And so to me, I just see humanity, especially young men, trying to find that balance, right? Find your masculine while also not disowning your feminine, but allowing your feminine expression to be what it is. That can bring a lot of self-rejection in men. If, like in former days when the masculine was dominating on the planet, even in our grandparents' generation, right? It was absolutely not okay for a young boy to express any level of femininity or feminine expression. Certainly not if you were homosexual. You're not allowed to do those things. You have to be fully masculine and no feminine. That was equally as abusive, right? As the radical left is being abusive now. So you see this pendulum swing in our society, which I find to be fascinating, honestly. But the answer is to stop the swinging, right? And eventually find the balance in between.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting as well, like as you're explaining that, like thinking back to from 2012 onwards, moving into like more of the heart chakra and stuff like that. If you actually think about it, since about 2012, the increase of the radical left on things like the transgenderism movement, the LGBT, whatever, the rainbow stuff, the amount of like toxins that are now pushed on our youngsters, as in like just the amount of energy drinks, the amount of like increased rubbish in the food, in the
Vaping,
water, vaping that's been brought out, like all these things. And that's why I'm so passionate about like getting our young teenagers, our future, to identify these toxic threats, because they've exacerbated massively just the sheer number of, like, let's just call them toxic attacks from different angles on our teenagers. And it's the same blueprint in every country. The minute like these youngsters, like they just don't know whether they're coming or going. They're just getting hit from all angles, whether it's energy drinks or fatty foods or pornography or Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto,
social
vaping,
media, man,
social media,
TikTok. Yeah.
It literally just takes over their mind, doesn't it? And like starts that programming phase. And it's like, but if you actually look at these kids now and have a conversation with them, more of them now totally get it, right? As in they know a lot of the truths anyway. It's like inherently in them. And it's like, and that's why so many of them struggle at school, because they're looking at it, they're sat here going, why am I learning half of this information? I don't need to know half of this. And they know that already. And that's why I feel quite sorry for them. And a lot of them now are going to school, they're being taught certain things, but then they're going on to TikTok and seeing a video from like an 18, 19-year-old influencer who's basically just debunking everything they've just been taught in school.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, man, this is why it's really important now that we get around these teenagers, male and female, and start getting them to really open their eyes to their divine masculine and divine feminine, and what that actually means, and how powerful they actually are outside all those control systems. I'm a big fan of like Dolores Cannon's work and stuff like that, and she talks inherently about these indigo children, these special kids that have come in after 2000 or 2003. And when you actually learn more about that, because I coach football or soccer to you guys, and the under 18s, and they're all huge. Just like I'm like 5'10", and I'm like one of the smallest people on the pitch. It's crazy.
Amazing.
So that in itself is just proof that like this is a different generation of young people that we've got coming through in terms of their structural build and everything else like that. But also their minds. I'm seeing how clever they actually are. They're cleverer than we were when we were 16, 17. So for me, I think that we need a real emphasis and a push on kind of ring fencing their, like naivety and stuff like that, and actually showing them just how powerful they truly are. Would you say that's something that we need to put a lot of focus into?
Big time. Yeah, the younger generation is the future of the planet. And I think you're very right that because the planet has gone through this shift into fourth density, I really do see everything through the law of one's perspective. So for the listeners who aren't familiar with law of one, please forgive me for so many references you may not understand. But basically, the concept of the indigo children that you're talking about, in the law of one, they call it wanderers, which is this idea that higher density beings will incarnate into a lower density planet, like a third density planet that is struggling to evolve because, let's say, on the other side of the plane, which we call the astral realm, it's where we go when we die. We become a pure energy body, or we discard the physical and realize we're just a pure energy body, and we go back to that side. We have our life review and we choose the next lifetime incarnation. Well, Law of One says really advanced souls will look for struggling planets sometimes to be of service to by incarnating into that planet to bring their higher frequency to the planet to help the planet evolve. And so whenever there's a transition point where a planet is about to graduate to the next density from third to fourth, you'll get a large influx of what they call wanderers who are wandering from their native density, let's say sixth or fifth or fourth density, and they're going back to third. So it's like an eighth grader going back to third grade to help tutor the eighth grader or the third graders, right? I've already been through this grade, I've graduated from it, but I'm going to help you graduate by tutoring you. And that's essentially what souls do. So whenever you have a transition like we're going through, you're going to get a lot of really advanced beings incarnating to be of service to the planet's evolution. And boy, do we see that in my generation, and especially in this next generation. There's just such an influx of incredibly gifted, talented, tapped in, higher frequency souls incarnating on this planet, which means, hey, we're in for a great transition in the coming decades as these younger souls grow and develop into their full potential. Like you said, I think this is a big reason why what I like to call the negative polarity on our planet. There's two polarities, positive and negative, the path of darkness and the path of light, or the path of separation and fear versus the path of love and unity. There's just two choices in consciousness we can make. And neither choice is right or wrong. It's just about what experience do you want to have? And so many of the, let's say, rich elites on our planet who have basically their entire life consists of how do I gain more power and money so I can have more power over people. That's what we call the negative polarity, which is all about control and manipulation and taking power over. Whereas the positive polarity in consciousness is all about service to others, unity, and elevating everyone equally. And so we live right now on a very negatively polarized planet in terms of the power structure that's in place. Every institution, every government is basically a negatively polarized institution. It's built like a pyramid structure, top down, right? And if you want to get to the top, you got to fight a lot of people to get there. Well, that's why I think our younger generation has been so inundated with toxins. You know, the vaccine schedule has like quadrupled since I was a child. I think I got 12 to 20 vaccines, and kids now, they're trying to give them like 72 vaccines before they're 3 years old or something. And it's like, let's get as much toxicity into the bodies, food, environment, medicine, everything, to dumb down their consciousness so that they don't awaken and realize their full potential. Let's get them hooked on TikTok and social media, video games, streaming, the metaverse, anything at all to keep them from awakening to reality. Because if this younger generation awakens to reality, the old generation that's controlling the planet is on their way out, and they know it. So I think they're trying to keep that death grip over the collective consciousness through more media programming, more propaganda, more control, and it's just not going to work, right? The more that they try to do that, what you suppress will eventually explode. And that's what we're seeing happen in this great awakening, is that we're tired of being controlled, of being suppressed, and we want to create a new and better world for ourselves and especially for our children. And so that starts, I think, with really empowering and educating the younger generation to be sovereign, to understand the world they live in, to understand the threats in their environment that are coming at them, which they probably wouldn't be aware of without some help. I mean, I certainly was not aware of the amount of toxicity in my food and just the absolutely corrupt legal system I was living under, taxation. We could go on and on. The medical system. It's just pure, unadulterated corruption everywhere you look in our world. And we need to help wake people up to that, not from a fear-based position, but from an awareness position of, hey, this is the world you live in. If you want to be empowered and transcend these systems, here's how you can do it. And like you said, it starts with taking self-responsibility, probably growing your own food, eating organic, getting as much of the toxins out of your body as you can so that your mind can be right, can be cognitive and sharp to see the propaganda coming at you from the media, from the government, from politicians, and transcend that. And it's like there's levels and levels of transcendence required on our planet right now to finally live as the free, sovereign, divine being you are. You're not even aware of how plugged into the matrix you are until you first wake up. And then it's this kind of journey of awakening for many years before you finally transcend that need to fight the system and overthrow the government. You know, like that's a good sign of progress when somebody gets there, because it means they're at least awakening to the reality of the world they live in. But that isn't the solution, and it's not the destination. We need to transcend that as well and say, we don't need to fight anybody. We just need to wake up to who we are, join together in unity, and build new systems that make the old systems obsolete. And that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's literally that mindset and concept of like transcending from the reactor, because that's what we do on a daily basis, is we're just reacting to every program and everything that's the control system, going from that reactor to the creator. And we do that as a singular level and as the collective. And I think people are really like grasping that now. You know, the communities that are building here in the UK, you know, are very much interested now in the grassroots up kind of lifestyle, not the top down. And that's across like whether it's village, town, or city. You know, people are like leaning more towards not needing to be told what to do, but wanting to learn and intuitively grasp like the information and doing things for themselves and gaining that autonomy back, whether it's, you know, through the medical system or even school or work. You know, not just giving everything away, that responsibility to everybody else, like taking full responsibility of all our actions, all our experiences, and coming out the other side in full control. You know, and that's how, or big part of, you know, we remember who we are and what we're all about. And there's not a single person I've met that's gone through this shift that hates it. As in,
I know,
you know, whether they're 70, 80 or 16, you know, they're finding like all these little learnings and new knowings that they're experiencing to be the most fascinating thing ever, you know. And I have such good conversations about this with so many people. You know, it's really beautiful to see. And the communities are just growing and growing and growing. And, you know, if this is a new thing to you, or you're just tuning in, you know, this is the whole point of connecting with like-minded people. It's not like, you're not talking about people just have an opinion of like what happened during the pandemic. You're talking about like-minded people, as in who are on a journey of like divinity to, you know, working out who they are and sharing those ideas, whether you're a dude, you know, out having a pint, or, you know, you're a girl down the salon. You know, you need to having these conversations, and you'll see the difference in the exchange and energy between you as well. It's like different to what you have with maybe somebody else at work having the same mundane conversations all the time. But Aaron, man, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, brother. The way you articulate your message and deliver the message, I absolutely love. I've been a fan of your work for a long time. So it's great to finally have you on the show. And I'm sure we'll do plenty more shows later on down the line. And if people do want to find out more about what you do and what you offer, where's the best place for people to catch you there?
Yeah, if you want to learn more about 4D University, you can go to 4duniversity.com or aaronabke.com. Other than that, I have a whole YouTube channel full of hundreds of videos that are just aiming to teach people everything we've talked about today, the process of spiritual evolution. And so you can find that content at youtube.com/Aaron Abke, and then at Aaron Abke on Instagram as well.
Amazing. So plenty of places for people to find all your work. Hours and hours of viewing, which is what a lot of people just want to tune into now. So it's absolutely fantastic that you offer that service. So it's been an absolute pleasure, brother. Ladies and gents, if you've enjoyed today's show, as always, please share it with at least one person. We need to get these types of messages out there to as many people as possible. All my shows are coming from a place of love, not fear-based content that you were just seeing the same type of stuff regurgitated all the time. We need to move away from that. These are the kind of stuff we need to get out there to people to help them with their evolution on their path, because the more people we help evolve, the more collectively that unity graduates and we all start moving through higher levels of consciousness. But from myself and Aaron, hope you enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll see you once again very soon, ladies and gents, on the AJ Roberts Show.